I think, David, in some measure, I agree with you. In some measure, I think I look at it a little bit differently. We have good economic conditions for the moment, although I think I still have a job in an investment banking firm, and you can get a sense, at least I think, that things may be slowing down. But that's the immediate. And what troubles me, and actually worries me very deeply, David, is that while we have great strengths for the longer term in our economy, and I would rather invest here or do business here in our economy than any other, very much including China, about which I think there's a lot of under-recognized issues. We're only going to realize that potential if we meet hugely consequential economic policy challenges. And if you look back over the last 15 plus years, David, I think we have met virtually none of these. We had a tax cut that was deficit funded. You can have your own view on what you think about that. I wrote that in the Washington Post that it was an op-ed that I thought it was a fiscal tragedy, which means I didn't like it. We had you have the ACA, which I at least think is very good. You all may have a different view. We had the financial reform bill. But basically, if you look at the great preponderance of our economic policy challenges, something that Melissa and I spent a lot of time on with the Hamilton Project, we have not addressed them. And what worries me as we go forward is that unless we do address all kinds of human capital issues, the income inequality that you mentioned, which I think will undermine our economy over time for multiple reasons, infrastructure, basic research, and so much else, our fiscal policies, which I think are leading us at some point, and I know this is a highly controversial issue, but I at least think it's leading us to perdition eventually, and maybe not so eventually. So I think the real problem, David, is we simply have a dysfunctional political system that is doing virtually nothing of what needs to be done. And I think that if we do what needs to be done, and let me say in the context of what needs to be done, I think there are two interdependent objectives, and we're not going to achieve either without the other. We need strong growth, and we need widespread economic well-being and reduced economic inequality. And unless you do both, I don't think you'll get either. And to look at it just from the point of view of the growth perspective, I've been focused on economic growth ever since I was in our administration. I don't think that you will get public and political support for market-based economics, which I think is essential for growth, or for globalization, which also contributes greatly to growth, unless the great predominance of the American people feel they will benefit from these policies. And today, for the very reasons you cited, a goodly portion of our population does not. So the only way we get to where we need to get is to reestablish in some fashion or other a functionality in our political system that is sufficient to meet our challenges. So I think, and this is my last comment on this, I think the fundamental and dispositive question with respect to the future of our economy is not any economic issue. It's whether or not we reestablish sufficiently, not terrifically, but sufficiently effective government, constructive and effective government, to meet our challenges. And as you all know, empirical evidence at the moment is pretty discouraging. Most of the people, David, that you and Melissa and I know are involved in political life one way or another are deeply concerned. I'm also deeply concerned. But I kind of have a more affirmative view as I am deeply concerned, and there's certainly no guarantees, and we may not do it. But I have a somewhat more affirmative view about the probabilities over time, though it could be a long and messy process, than I think prevails amongst the people we know.